Rogers Nelson was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by two jazz musicians, John Nelson and Maddie Shaw. At a young age, Prince played various instruments before he created his own band called the Grand Central in junior high. Years later, Prince was finally able to get signed with the Warner Bros. In 1978 after his manager referred to him as a new Stevie Wonder. That same year, he put out his first album, For You, and he continued to put out a couple more albums, but it was his album 1999 that ushered his breakthrough in the music industry. Although the Warner Bros. Helped to successfully jumpstart Prince's career, he struggled for years with the company over his rights to his music. After years of public legal battle with the company, Prince eventually parted with the Warner Bros. To become known as the artist formerly known as Prince in 1992. Prince released his final album with the Warner Bros. Called Chaos and Disorder in 1996, though he later took the name Prince back in 2000. By 2004, Prince was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he continued to sell out shows and win a number of awards like Grammys. Unfortunately, Prince Rogers Nelson died on April 21st, 2016, at the age of 57 when he accidentally overdosed on fentanyl that was used for an ongoing hip pain. Despite Prince's death, his leadership continues to have an effect on both the music industry and the minorities in the United States. Through advocating for artists' rights, showing off gender-bending fashion, and acting as an activist for the LGBTQ+ and Black communities, Prince led the way for challenging traditional ideas in the United States during the end of the 20th century and the early 21st century.
Pioneer in combating traditional ideas in the United States, as he was one of the first musicians to publicly advocate for artists' rights. Prince's ongoing disagreements with his record label, Warner Bros., was very public. Not only did he stand up for himself and his frustrations with the lack of control he had over his music, but he did it on such a large platform. On numerous occasions, Prince performed with the word slave written on his face. Prince even performed his song, Dinner with Dolores, on the widely famous Today Show with the word on his cheek. When asked about this reference to his conflict with the label by Rolling Stones in 1996, Prince said, "When you stop a man from dreaming, he becomes a slave. That's where I was. I don't own Prince's music. If you don't own your masters, your master owns you." On an exceedingly popular television platform, Prince openly compares himself to a slave and Warner Bros. To his master who owned his music. This type of activity and bold comparison was not common, but it would effectively challenge the conventional control record labels had over musicians. The authority record labels had over artists was rarely discussed during these times. Therefore, Prince became a pioneer in the music industry as he was brave enough to publicly challenge this ownership labels had over artists' work. Prince's stance against Warner Bros. Would grow even more monumental than just advocating for artists and inspiring them to do the same and standing up for themselves. When Prince eventually made his landmark deal with Warner Bros., he would gain ownership over his master tapes. This would also mark a new era in copyright law, as the ability to terminate recording copyright after 35 years was granted in the Copyright Revision Act of 1976. Prince's success would go beyond just his stance against his record label, as it would legally change copyright laws and assist other artists in the future who are struggling with ownership of their music. While Prince gained success in his public stance against Warner Bros. And their control of his music, he became a pioneer in advocating for artists' rights. As this one is especially common, Prince's use of his tremendous platform to challenge the way artists had traditionally been treated by the music industry and by the record label was important. His bravery in taking such a stance would be worthwhile, as he would not only bring light to the lack of rights some artists have to their music, but he would even have success in making legal strides in the traditional laws of the music industry.
Prince was a pioneer in the fashion industry as he continued to publicly experiment with a gender-bending style. On numerous occasions, Prince boldly showed off gender-fluid outfits that were uncommon at this time. On this stop on this Purple Rain tour in 1984 at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Prince performs with some makeup and a lace blouse with flowers embroidered on it. Once again, Prince takes the stage this time at a massive Wembley Arena in 1995, wearing head-to-toe pink eye makeup, high-waisted pants, and a large assortment of gold necklaces. Of makeup, blouses, floral patterns, the color pink, jewelry, and other clothing styles that were traditionally worn by women on tour is a prime example of how Prince was a pioneer in the fashion industry. While these styles are typically associated with solely being for women, Prince chose to disregard and challenge these fashion stereotypes to express himself. His comfort in consistently wearing various types of gender-fluid clothing on such large stages would help to slowly break these traditional gender stereotypical beliefs regarding fashion to pave the way for many artists to express themselves in an unorthodox approach. Even when it came to bigger parts of Prince's career, like his albums, Prince wasn't afraid to display his gender-fluid fashion. On the cover of Prince's album Dirty Mind, Prince chose to wear bikini underwear, a trench coat, and high heels. This cover may have been too risky for some record store owners, as it depicted a gender-bending, nonconformist, and some believed most dangerous man in identity. Despite the backlash that Prince would receive in his gender-ambiguous cover, Prince chose a cover that made him feel good about his work. Prince's decision to not conform to the idealist image of men during the 20th century would help to normalize a sense of freedom when it came to fashion. His gender-bending style gave others a space to picture themselves as masculine, feminine, gender-fluid, without being forced to follow strict barricades and labels. Prince's non-gender specific fashion choices would help to long-term break the conventional way gender was associated with fashion. But on a more personal scale, he helped others to feel comfortable with themselves. Despite what others had to say about him, Prince was a pioneer in the fashion industry as he bravely showed off his non-gender conforming fashion in a time when it wasn't so common. He paved the way as an artist performing with a non-traditional style while also making everyday people feel comfortable to wear what makes them feel happy despite gender stereotypes. Now we see both artists and people who aren't musicians challenging these traditional clothing stereotypes and wearing the same gender bending fashion that we saw Prince wear back in the 1980s.
Prince was a pioneer in confronting conservative ideas rooted in the United States, as he acted as both an activist and role model for the LGBTQ plus and Black communities. Music was one of Prince's main forms of using his voice. In his song Diamonds and Pearls, that hit Billboard charts, Prince sings, "If I gave you diamonds and pearls, would you be happy, boy or girl?" Lyrics like this helped to create a generation where homophobia wouldn't be disregarded in the default mode of the American culture. Prince used music to break down default stigmas people had about minorities like the LGBTQ plus community during a time where homophobia was more prominent and normalized in society. Using music as a form of activism wasn't as common as the time. Therefore, Prince became a pioneer in activism amongst artists as he included important messages in his music. In his song Controversy, Prince sings, "Am I black or white? Am I gay or straight?" as well as, "I wish there was no black and white. I wish there were no rules." In his song, Prince breaks down the importance of race and sexual orientation in the 20th century and questions why there has to be one answer to these traditional questions in society. This confrontation would open the idea up to people having complex identities in regards to race and sexualities and how those factors shouldn't restrict people's relations with one another. While continuing to produce songs with an activist message behind them, Prince sets himself apart from other artists and becomes a pioneer in the music industry. His recognition of the LGBTQ plus and Black communities and the challenges they face would not only break down conventional ideas about these communities to construct new ideas in society, but also create a positive space for these communities. Whether it was with his music or with his flamboyant stage presence, Prince helped people to expand their imagination on who they wanted to be in society without being ashamed of it. With consideration for others, Prince used his platform to make other listeners feel comfortable to find themselves without feeling that there were any boundaries. With his vast space that Prince built with his platform, more and more stigmas could be broken down as more and more people felt comfortable exploring their identity. Prince's ability to advocate for minorities like the LGBTQ plus community would continue to prove him as a pioneer in various aspects of the music industry. Even at the most famous events for music, Prince made sure to advocate for minorities. At the 2015 Grammy Awards, he sounded political and sang, "Like books and Black lives, albums still matter." Once again, Prince used his voice on such a significant stage to speak out for the Black community. Now it is rare to see an event like this without at least one person speaking up about important issues like this. It was artists like Prince who were pioneers in publicly representing minorities. In a variety of ways, Prince made sure to use his success to challenge negative, conservative ideas rooted in the United States.
Not only was Prince an incredible artist, but he was also an incredible person, as he used his platform for the greater good, as he was a pioneer in the music industry, fashion industry, and in activism. Prince would publicly battle his record label and not only draw attention to the struggles many artists have with having ownership over their music, but he would help legally change the orthodox relationships between musicians, their label, and their music forever. In regards to fashion, Prince would bravely express himself on his vast platform and continuously challenge the traditional gender stereotypes associated with clothing. Past time, it wasn't common to see this gender fluid fashion that Prince wore. Nowadays, this type of fashion is far more widespread as people feel more comfortable expressing themselves thanks to pioneers like Prince. He continued to prove himself as a pioneer as he was a leading artist in using his platform to both create a positive space for the LGBTQ plus and Black communities and to help reconstruct the negative stereotypes society constructed about them. No matter the subject or industry it was regarding, Prince was brave enough to risk his reputation in order to be a pioneer and make a change.
And nothing's too early or too soon to just celebrate the greatness of a man that did so much for the music world as well as for the consciousness of caring about people as did he.